Ladies and gentlemen, this is Envoy of Kairos returning to you for more Terraria. I know it looks a little different. I applied a texture pack. So, things don't look too different, but if you look a little closer, you'll realize that there's clearly some unrecorded footage that you guys aren't seeing. I tried to record an episode before this one, and it was completely black-screened. I made about 2 hours of progress, and I got absolutely none of it on camera. I didn't even get my mic. Also, you may notice that my actions on screen aren't quite matching up to what I'm saying. That's because I'm recording this audio in post because I fucked that up on this recording too. New computer, OBS settings were off, it's just a mess. I finally figured it out though. But I got a ton of new stuff, including a meteor fell, and I built this murderous star cannon, which is ridiculously overpowered, especially when you consider that I have this limitless supply of stars over here since I, fully researched those. I also managed to dig this tunnel all the way down to hell. Didn't really dig it, though. I used sticky bombs, hundreds of them. And then, with that, I managed to get some hellstone and made myself a full set of molten armor and the staff to summon this little imp bastard, which does some really good damage. Or at least, it's kind of the best summon I can get right now. So, overall, it's a lot of progress, but otherwise all I really did was go and re-kill some Eyes of Cthulhu and the Brain of Cthulhu. Now, I have a few other bosses I need to bring down. And already have. This is all in post. So let's see how I fucked it up. Okay, so here's this old bastard. I need to kill him in order to fight Skeletron, but first, I need to set up a half-decent arena, because he's actually a pretty tough boss. Now, this time, I failed. I did not set up a pretty decent arena. In fact, my arena was pretty terrible. I didn't put up any platforms, so my dodging ability was horrendous. I also managed to discover that a second meteor had fallen over here that I hadn't seen yet. I'll have to clean that up later to prevent mobs from spawning. And now, here goes the boss fight. Skeletron is one beefy, lanky bastard. He's a bullet sponge with really obnoxious movement patterns that make leading shots on him ridiculously difficult. Basically, if you want to farm this guy, you need methods that are going to be either tanky enough to completely withstand his hands and fast enough to dodge his skull, or you're going to want to make sure you have something that's seeking in some manner. So, summons are pretty useful for that, but there aren't any summons that are quite good enough for it at this point in the game. So, really all I can do is just rely on my star cannon here and just keep shooting at him endlessly, missing with about 5/6 of my shots, probably. And, yeah, I'm doing some pretty decent damage, but my health ain't looking too good either, and those skulls that he shoots, which is also a spell you can get for yourself later, those things are a pain in the ass to dodge if you're not ridiculously fast, for this point in the game anyway. So, yeah, I failed on the first run, and I don't think I'm not that better when I go back on my second run, since I was so close already. Yeah. So then, I end up down here in the jungle, looking for a different boss, because I needed to wait for the old man to respawn, so I could sacrifice him again. So, here I am looking for the queen bee, and right here's a good hive. Getting into a hive is a bit of a pain in the ass, because anytime you break one of these hive blocks, there's a chance that a bee will spawn out of it, and it'll just attack you while you're in the middle of digging. It's ridiculous. And then, here I am trying to set up the arena, and I accidentally spawned her early, when I have no solid footing save for this tiny space here. The honey in the hive is slowing me down a lot, and the size of the arena is really tiny. And then, of course, that's topped off with the fact that I didn't get any of my defensive or regenerative buffs set up, so all I have is my potions to rely on, and a considerable amount less defense. You might also notice I'm not using the Star Cannon here. The Star Cannon is pretty good for its piercing and high damage, but that was especially good against Skeletron, largely because he had 3 body parts to hit, and it was a pretty open space to fight. Here, I'm taking on the Queen with the Mini Shark, equipped with Meteor Bullets, which pierce and bounce. So, using them in an enclosed arena like this is quite effective. You know, I'm able to get 2 hits on each of them on average, and it'll rack up the damage a lot quicker than I would with the Star Cannon here. But that doesn't mean that I'm still well-equipped for this fight, because yeah, our health is looking pretty comparable right now, but the Queen Bee's damage rises as I do more to it. You know, its health bar drops, it does more dangerous shit, and gets harder to hit. Especially in Master Mode. So yeah, I'm just having a pretty bad time right here, which is ironic considering it's a worse time than I had with the skeletal boss. And then even worse is that the Queen Bee keeps spawning in little bee minions to fight me with. And I'm in a very enclosed space with very minimal mobility, especially with the honey slowing me down constantly. My chances to dodge and retaliate when she starts spawning them in is kinda slow. Just, I can't move fast enough to get away from the bees or far enough to avoid their damage. So I was kinda screwed from the start on this one. As I'm sure you can all tell at this point, I'm not far from getting slaughtered. The only saving grace I really have is my strategy to keep pulling myself out of the honey pool with my grappling hook, which is a pretty effective strategy, but not so much when bees keep knocking you around and actually knocking you off of your hook. And there it goes. So, that's the second boss failed in this recording attempt. Well, here's to hoping that I do a hell of a lot better on the next 2 runs, huh? So eventually I found this one, and immediately fucked up again by spawning the Queen Bee the moment I got into an even smaller hive. But I had a plan here. I was already on pretty good health, and I was dodging relatively well. Not to mention I have my buffs active, so I decided to just go ahead and start placing all of the items I needed to properly set up my arena, even while I was being attacked. Of course, it's a hazardous thing to attempt to do, but being an even smaller arena was actually in my favor for this, because it actually meant that the Queen Bee had a harder time repositioning herself to attack me properly, which meant that she had less opportunities to do so to begin with. So, next thing you know, I have my full setup with a fireplace, a heart lantern, and a bass statue. My potions are all active, and I have my mini shark back out. And to save you guys some time rewatching the same fight after I got my ass kicked and so close to killing her before, I managed to soundly destroy her this time despite running out of ammo. So, back to Skeletron. This time I managed to set up an arena that actually has platforms, so I've got much better mobility, and avoiding his skull spell and all of his attacks in general should be a lot easier, despite me getting hit so many times just there kind of suggesting otherwise. That was just me being stupid. Because just going laterally doesn't work against this guy with his awkward movements. You're going to have to go vertical at some point fighting this guy if you're going to have any chance to escape his attacks. Because if you stick to lateral, he's eventually going to surround you with both of his hands and his skull. At which point you're just getting hit by everything under the sun, and your health is going to drop like a rock. Thankfully, I've managed to destroy both of his hands, and now I'm down to his skull, which is down to about half health now. So obviously this run doesn't look like it's going better because my health is so low, but keep in mind, it's not going to be long before I'm able to use my potions again, and my ability to dodge him is critically better. Had a really close moment there, but overall this fight is an improvement considering I won it all. Finally, Skeletron is defeated, and I have access to the dungeon. So of course I go diving right away and breaking up books. And my first main goal is to get all of these books so that I can eventually get one to drop the Water Bolt spell. Then, as I descend further, we come across these golden chests, which sadly I can't open unless I get my hands on some golden keys, which drop from random enemies in the dungeon. And as I descend down the dungeon, I find that the engineer is right here waiting for me, exactly what I was hoping for. Can't access her at all until you've beaten Skeletron and gotten down here. So I immediately go on a spree of buying up all of her stuff, researching it, and getting an infinite supply to use for all of my building, because I have some great mechanized ideas. Then she proceeds to jump off this cliff, and promptly die while I'm trying to defend her from skeletons. But I managed to get some keys. The first chest ends up having that sword I needed. The second one ends up having the cobalt shield. I end up looting as many chests as I can, researching a ton of shit, collecting the furniture and cataloging it, finding a couple of traps that nearly kill me, finding a cave full of emeralds, a huge tunnel that took forever to dig out, and eventually I end up slaughtered. But I got everything I needed, so I managed to go back, and I find that we're already in the middle of a fucking slime rain event when I respawn. So, I figure the best course of action is to speedrun it. By summoning the King Slime and immediately punking his ass. So then I end up going back to the jungle and collecting a good deal of spores, stingers, and vines. I need those so I can go back to my house and craft the Blade of Grass. And then I go searching for a Crimson Altar so I can combine the Blade of Grass, the sword I got from the dungeon, the Blood Butcherer, and the Hellfire Greatsword to create the Night's Edge. And then, of course, back to town so I can pay the goblin an exorbitant amount of money to get the legendary Night's Edge. And with that done, that's everything for this episode. I know it's a little short, but, you know, I had to edit out a lot, considering I didn't have any of my original audio. And I didn't want to bore you guys with, you know, rambling about the same stuff when I barely remember how I said it in the original recording. So I'll just try to do better next time now that my OBS settings are solid and not fucking me over left and right. So, that'll be it for now. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for another episode, and I'm going to be working on building an entire town down in the caves. That should be pretty fun. And then top that off probably with killing the Wall of Flesh and getting into hard mode. Well, for now, later guys.